Hi, algebra students. Today we're taking a look at rearranging formulas. A formula can be rearranged by doing inverse operations to isolate the necessary variable. I will do part A of each problem with you. Try all part B's on your own. So here's our first equation. We have I equals PRT, where I is the interest, P is the principal balance, R is rate as a decimal, and T is time. So this is a different interest formula. It's what we call simple interest. It's not like the decay and growth formulas that we are using, so please don't confuse them. So in this case, for part A, we want to rewrite for P in terms of I, R, and T. So what does that mean? It just means solve for P. Get P by itself. So we know I equals P, R, T. P, R, and T are all being multiplied, and the opposite of multiplying is dividing. So we're going to divide by R and T to get P isolated or by itself. And if we do that, the R and the T cancel out, and look at that, P is by itself. So our equation is P equals I over RT. And that's solving for P in terms of I, R, and T. In our next equation, we have a familiar one. This is perimeter equals 2L plus 2W, where P is perimeter, L is length, and W is width. So we want to rewrite for L in terms of P and W. So again, we want to isolate the L. So we have P equals 2L plus 2W. We could do this in a couple different ways. I'm going to take an easier route and subtract 2W from both sides. That will get the 2L by itself. So I have P minus 2W equals 2L. Then since 2 and L are being multiplied, I can do the inverse, which is to divide by 2, which will get the L by itself, leaving me with L equals P minus 2W all over 2 as my answer. Now, another way I could have done this, just so you see it, is since P equals 2L plus 2W, I could factor out a 2 and get 2 times L plus W, then divide by 2. So that gives me P over 2 equals L plus W. Then I could subtract the W to get the L by itself, which results in L equals P over 2 minus W. So either way works, and really if you divided both of the terms in the last example by 2, that is what you would have. So you should know that they're equivalent, and there's different ways you could do most math problems. All right, let's try another one. Now we have area equals 1/2 base times height. Hopefully you realize that that is the area formula for a triangle. So we want to rewrite for B in terms of A and H. So we have A equals 1/2 base times height. Let's get rid of that fraction first. When we have a fraction, the opposite is to multiply by the reciprocal. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 2. So now I have 2A equals BH. And since B and H are being multiplied, I want to divide by H to get B by itself. So my equation winds up being B equals 2A divided by H. All right. Next, we have volume. V equals pi r squared h, and that's the volume formula for a cylinder. So we have to solve for r in terms of V and H. So we want to rewrite the formula. V equals pi r squared h. Again, we're solving for r, so we're trying to get the r by itself. Since this is all being multiplied, I'm going to divide by pi and h first. So I get r squared equals v over pi h. Then the inverse of squaring is to take the square root. So r equals the square root of v over pi h. Okay, so whenever you have something with a square, it's typically the very last thing you have to do. So keep that in mind for the future. This is one that happens to show up a lot on the Regents exam. All right, let's try another. This time we have 1/3 pi r squared h, and this is the volume for a cone. So again, we want to rewrite for r. So volume equals 1/3 pi r squared h. And we want to isolate that r. So we first want to get rid of the fraction. So the opposite of multiplying by 1/3 would be to multiply by 3. So that gives me 3v equals pi r squared h. Then I'm going to divide by pi h to get the r squared by itself. So now I've got 3v over pi h equals r squared. And last, I take the square root to get the r by itself. So r equals the square root of 3v over pi h. All right, now this time we have the area formula for a trapezoid, where A is area, H is height, B1 is base 1, and B2 is base 2. If you have a trapezoid, it looks something like this. Okay, this is usually considered base 1, this is considered base 2, and this is considered the height. All right, so we want to rewrite for H in terms of A, B1, and B2. So again, area equals half the height times base 1 plus base 2. So we want to get rid of that 1/2 h. We can multiply both sides by 2. So 2a equals h times b1 plus b2. And since the height is being multiplied by all of base 1 and base 2, we could divide by base 1 plus base 2. And we get h equals 2a divided by b1 plus b2. Okay, now that's not always possible. You usually can't divide by a whole sum. The only time you can do that is if it's in parentheses together. All right, so hopefully you're understanding how to do this. We've kind of done it when we've rewritten slope-intercept form from standard form to slope-intercept form. It's the same idea, just with some more variables. So you're going to try all the part B's on your own once again, and I'll be around to help you guys out. Please check in with me before moving on to your exit ticket and your homework.